to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While we're on this subject, let me take the opportunity to remind everybody that we will have our Memorial Day flag ceremony as we did last year. I think on the 31st, the actual date, where we go out there at sunrise and raise the flag, and then work to half staff for the occasion, White House. And then we go back at noon and raise it back up again. That's an open invitation for anybody who's disposed to join us. Glad to have you aboard. We have a few people with us tonight, which is always good. May I ask them, you may be aware that the public comment period in these meetings is now split, where there is an opening period for anybody who already has something on their mind that they want us to consider in the course of the meeting, and then another one at the end, where we take brickbats for anything you've heard that you want to bring back for additional consideration later on. So this is the opening period. Are there any opening comments? I don't see any. That being the case, Mr. Herring, the floor is yours for the attorney's remarks.
Thank you. Presently, we have 3 delinquent tax liens that are to be filed. Attempts have been made to negotiate and resolve those delinquent taxes, but there's been no success. As a result, now the liens will have to be filed and lawsuits will have to be filed against 3 homeowners. That's an unfortunate situation to be in, but we have no choice but to move forward on that. There are still some pending matters of litigation, and instead of going into great detail, I will tell you that the matter involving the airport authority is now in Jefferson Circuit Court, and before the end of the month our statement of appeal will be filed, and we will have done our part at that particular level. We'll be awaiting the airport authority's response to the same, and it will then be up to a judge to decide what next steps will occur in that case. We are still moving toward trial in the matters involving former police chief Reeser and former city clerk Ms. Stephanie Lee, and there's a motion pending for that lawsuit to be decided by summary judgment in favor of the city, and again we're waiting on a judge for a decision in that case. There are a few other matters, but there really hasn't been any activity in a number of months in any of the other cases, and those are being handled by assigned counsel from the Kentucky League of Insurance. And as such, there's nothing new to report, if you will, for those particular areas. There's a recodification of the ordinances that's underway. We have received the initial draft, and we've also received notes from an assigned attorney as part of that package concerning some recommendations. It's now going to be our job to do the final lifting to get a ordinance put together for those parts of the code that need to be amended or repealed, and I now at least have a guideline to work with and work off of, and it's my hope that I'll get the go-ahead to prepare that for you so that it'll be on a soon agenda, so that you can have a final product to be turned over, so that the legal publishing company can put together your new code of ordinances. With that, I believe, Mayor, unless you have any questions or there's questions from the council, that's my report for this morning.
I'll try and add a couple of remarks in a minute, but let me see first if anyone does have any questions for you. None? All right, thanks very much. You have seen the reports from the contractor on the recodification. They were included in your packet. I did that mainly to illustrate the fact that there's still going to be a lot of work doing this thing. Even after the contract is fulfilled, those of us who thought we were just gonna get a nice finished product and put it on the shelf and implement it, probably have a little awakening to do. I anticipate looking for some help in screening this thing further and doing some of the organizational tasks and some of the policy implications of compiling this thing into a document that we can all take ownership of. And of course, I have no qualms about asking you for help on this, because ultimately this is legislative work we're talking about. So what I hope you'll do is look through the organization that they've outlined in their letter for particular topics that you think may be of interest to you, or that you have particular skills to help work in. And then we'll talk after that about the ultimate effort to consolidate all that into a fresh code that we can move forward with. It's going to be a task. I look forward to getting on with it as quickly as we can take over the draft that they've sent us and begin to parse it out. The other thing I wanted to mention briefly is that along with the legal work that we're doing, of course, there are always insurance implications. We've got a new insurance policy that is about to arrive, I'm told, which will be just an update of the KLC coverages that we have right now, but may have some implications, and I'm really delighted that Lindsay was able to volunteer her dad, who is an insurance professional and educator, to preview some of the topics that we're working on and some of the policy coverage, and provide us some expert advice as we get forward on that sort of thing. This is Mr. Keith Wiltz, let me invite you to, if you have any introductory remarks you want to make of it in that nature, I'm happy to hear it. But certainly glad to have your help in all of these areas as we try and make as coherent a body of it as we can. Okay, Steve, I think this is as much as we need to keep you for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report and for your help with all of this. And let me turn to Chief Sweeney.
Hello.
Last month was relatively quiet. We had one bicycle theft, but it was unusual because the person on the bicycle simply traded up. He apparently had his own bicycle, and the tires are a little low on it, I guess. And he saw another one in the garage, and he left his, and then took off on the other one. And resident saw him escape, but we weren't called in time to get to him. So I guess at least they left him alive. So anyway, that was about all we had. We also had I mentioned it to you last month. That it was the Peter Hall. I want his name, excuse me. A burglary on Cardinal Drive. And we actually, I think if you recall, have a suspect in that one. The person the same day that we suspect did it tried to do a pawn, and it looked like it was a sort of unique radio system, Bluetooth radio system that this person had stolen. But the pawn shop couldn't agree on a price, so they didn't take it, which would have been really nice for us if they did, because then we would have had evidence and property we could have made a match. Sad to say today, we've had another one on the same street, and this is really disappointing because now that we only had one of all last year, and now we're up to two this year. But talking, and I don't want to say the victim's name without the victim's permission, but we said, have you seen anybody around here unusual in the last couple of days? Well, yesterday someone knocked on my door and wanted to power wash my house. And you all heard me mention before, this is one of the things burglars do. They knock on your door, and first they hope you're not home, and then if you're not, they'll go around to the back or some other place and break in the window. If you're home, they say, hey, I'm here to paint your house, do your driveway, fix your windows, whatever. So he said, Ray said, let me go get a picture. Went home, went back to the office, got the picture of the guy from last month. And John said, I think that's him. So it said, if it's not, it looks a whole lot like him. And it's a burglar named Sonny Tweedy, of all things. So we're good in contact with the Louisville Metro Pawn Squad. There's really one person there now, but she's wonderful. And she's going to check to see if we've had any pawns today or the next couple of days, because typically this guy goes out, he burglarizes, he goes immediately and pawns things. Also yesterday, Teddy was in the office working on the schedule for next month, Teddy Corporal on, and the phone rang. Well, normally we're not in here, but so I think I'll answer the phone. The lady says, hey, I called before a week or so ago about a truck that was seen dumping off mail off Fincastle, which is really on the city. But we've had some mail thefts here in the neighborhood, a couple of them. So she went over there. They're passed out in this truck, whiteboard truck, 2 females. And in fact, they had marijuana in plain sight, long story short, pulled out just untold numbers of items out of the vehicle. Mail matter going back 2 years. Postal inspector was called in. There was some mail that was taken from next door to the first burglary from last month. But since they did the search warrant by Ted Hoffs and Corporal Lawn, and we called Ray Patterson, coordinated with the postal inspector, logged everything, went over to the 6th Division. I called him today because really most of that's going to be on LMPD. That we took all the things over there today and spent an hour or so going through it with them. As of this afternoon, they've already cleared 1 burglary and 7 or 8 theft of mail matters, which are felonies, from people around the Louisville Metro. Or there could be who knows how many more. They were taking mail out, things with credit cards, packages, and possibly going into garages. And I may post this on particular LPD if they would send it out. But this is since you're all residents, I'll send it around everybody. These are the suspects that were in the van, and if anybody has seen them anywhere in the area, one lady last month or the month before, back I guess a couple of months ago, on Chickadee found a lady near her garage, and she later on that night had her bike stolen, and it sounded like one of these ladies. So I went over to her house right before the meeting. She wasn't home yet, but I'll pass around two different subjects. So if you've seen them anywhere, what they do is they'll follow the mailman around, the UPS guy, run up on the porch, grab the stuff, and if they see, one of the things they do, if you see a garage door open, like that bike that was taken earlier, it's crimes of opportunity. So words to the wise. Anytime we see something, you all see something that just looks out of place, I've said this many times, please call. Maybe it's nothing, but let us decide that for you, because quite often it turns out to be something. And in this case, we'll hopefully solve some crimes in here. Going on to the next item, you may know that Officer Marcy Davis, one of our part-timers, has submitted a resignation effective in June. She has a lot of issues, family issues that she needs to deal with, and it's just become more burdensome than she cares to deal with and leave. She lives out in Oakland County. So she gave us a nice, a month-long notice and gave us time to find some suitable replacements. And we also, the other things happening is Officer Ron Fredericks is going back more to reserve status because he has a thriving business. And so he's fairly newly married, so he was wanting to cut back a little bit. And Officer Curtis, you may have heard, was involved in a motor vehicle accident on the 4th. And he's out at least until the 8th of June. That's when he goes back again. So I'm not sure what his condition will be as he has to go through physical therapy. So it was time to bring on a couple of other part-timers. One of them is Kenny Betts. He worked for me. He was 10 years with Louisville Metro. He worked for me about maybe the last year I was there. If you've had a chance to read his resume, he's just a dissertation short of your doctorate. He has a master's degree and of course his bachelor's. Every other kind of certification given to the police department. Matter of fact, I gave him the bigger office next to mine. I said, your resume is more impressive than mine. He's probably surely smarter. You take the big office. And worked harder than anybody else. You want me to speak?
No.
Oh, yeah, stand up. This is Officer Kenny Betts. Kenny actually left the department in 10 years. He was pursuing his doctorate. As I said, he wants to teach. He had been teaching. So he had some opportunities to go teach on the college level. And shortly after that, eBay, I don't know how they found out about it, but he got hired by eBay to do, what kind of security?
Sanctioned security.
And now you just got promoted over there, all their North American operations. So your question is, why are you coming here to work? He loves law enforcement. He's been a firefighter. He's been law enforcement. It's something that gets in your blood, and this was an opportunity for him to do that part. He's young. He's got lots of energy. Hopefully his new fiance, when they're going to get married this summer, will allow him to come here a few days, but he's going to fill some holes and some needs we have in the police department. Try not to get to know him too well because he'll probably take my job at some point. And he can do that part-time too, I'm sure. So, the other fellow is a guy I worked with for over 20 years, Scott Bartow, Stephen Scott Bartow. And he's a veteran. He spent 4 years in the Army and then another 5, 6 years as a reservist, serving our country. Was serving in some of the busiest divisions in the LMPD, has an excellent record. He ended up in training, I guess, the last half of his career. Sometimes your best officers, it's a bitter choice. You put them in training the other people so you can be better officers, but then you don't have that good officer on the street. But you do it in hopes that he'll touch many more lives. And he was a great instructor, great officer, and we'll bring him on part-time also. And lastly, I'll just throw this out there so we're no surprises. There were 2 of the officers that came to us, late watch guys, Steve Bowie and Ed Loudon. I haven't heard anything, but before they ever came here, they had put in an application to the sheriff's department. The sheriffs had chosen all their highest for full-time people. The word I got is I got a call that they were looking at them. Nothing's definite, but what I think I've always said, I've been really lucky about getting good people, and when you get really good people that are still young, somebody else eventually is going to offer them more benefits, more time, more pay. So I don't know if they're going to be leaving, but I'm already looking ahead at that. And there's another fellow here that I work with named Chris Heaps. You want to stand up? Because he's not started here yet, but if one of those guys goes, I'm going to ask you to confirm him. He's was an instructor. He's got certifications out the wazoo. Incredible police officers, great instincts. He was actually worked both of you in the gang unit.
Yes, sir.
They were the first officers that started the Louisville Metro Police Officers gang unit, and just a wealth of information, incredible amount of information. They were a great resource. So he had talented, resourceful officers, and he's a night out. And he said if we were able to bring him on, he'd want to work late watch. That's a rare find, and nobody else wants to drive around at 3 in the morning, but this fellow does. So we'll see what happens with that and Steve, and then we may be coming back next month with Chris. So that said, I was hoping we'd maybe get those Kenny and with your all's approval and Scott.
All right, we have been furnished the biographies that Doug has just summarized for you. Do you have any questions for these gentlemen, since they're both here? Maybe they could join us tonight. Thanks very much for coming. Anything?
You want to?
I don't see any. May I have a motion to confirm these two?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Very well. Those in favor of both confirmations? Anyone opposed? Very well. Congratulations, gentlemen. If you'll allow me, I'll administer the oath right now. Put these guys right to work. What do you think?
Yeah, we could have to go patrol Cardinal Drive for the next couple hours.
Come on up, fellas. All right. Raise your right hands, please. We'll do these simultaneously. We solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as you continue a resident thereof. Do you further swear or affirm to uphold and enforce the ordinances of the City of Auburn Park, and faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of police officer according to law? Do you further solemnly swear or affirm that you will endeavor to the best of your ability to detect and prosecute all gamblers and others violating laws against gaming? Do you finally solemnly swear or affirm that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within this state nor out of it, nor have sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as a second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help you God. Gentlemen, congratulations. It's been a pleasure to have you. And, tell you what, Doug, can
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'll take that. Say what?
Take care of the rest. Now, since I think we are finished with the police report and the good news of Doug's continued success with hiring good people for us.
I had a quick question for the
Please.
chief. Chief,
Yes, sir.
I just had a quick question on the burglary. I don't want to steal the thunder. Are you allowed to speak what times they occur?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Both of them are morning.
Like how early morning?
Well, we know today was had to be between 8:30 and 11 or 10:30 because we had Ann Bobikin was actually planting a tree after that time, 11, and she left at I think 8:30 to go to a doctor's appointment.
Were both of them? Was
I
that
think
similar to
the other one had a far wider window. Could have been any time from the morning till the afternoon. I found that typically they're hitting in the mornings.
Okay.
And that's done, all across the city. Daytime burglaries are common. They want to make sure you're at work and then have plenty of time to get to the pawn shops before they close.
Well, thank you. I think that's helpful for everyone to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what time it was.
It always, if you see anybody driving slow, and we're getting more and more calls, by the way, which is really helpful. Someone sees someone just looks out of place, and we get called, and then we're out there checking them out. It pays off.
Is there a tip line online too, as far as that right?
I'm sorry.
Don't we have a tip line online where people can report things too?
There's a comment section that
Comment
they can
section.
put stuff in that would go, but not a tip line, no.
Thank you, Chief.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And guys, these are thrilling meetings as they progress, but if you all have things to do, we don't expect you to sit through the entire meeting. I know you got things going on, but certainly.
Yeah, I should have said so. We moved Doug's segment ahead so that we could allow you to escape at whatever point you see fit. Very glad you could join us.
Appreciate it.
Our next item, continuing the good news, is one additional introduction I'd like to make before we get into the report itself, and that's Ms. Brenda Bradshaw, who has signed on as our new bookkeeper and has already been working hard to bring our accounts up to speed, and has produced for you both a corrected March report, which doesn't vary greatly from the one that you already have, but for completeness, she has gone ahead and produced for you anyway, and you're welcome to peruse at your leisure. The report for this month, based on that account that she brought up to date, cumulatively through March, now accounts for all the activity that occurred in the month of April, and so you have the regular April report, which is the one that we would normally do at a meeting for the most recent month. She's also added an item that some of you may not have seen before, but we were doing for a good while that I thought was very useful. And this is a cumulative profit and loss report right from QuickBooks. She, I think, has finally got a formula for moving us toward using QuickBooks output directly to inform the council in the regular reporting process, as opposed to what you've seen right now, which is a rather primitive sort of manual transcription of QuickBooks output onto an Excel spreadsheet, mostly by hand, which is always risky, and you've seen some of the missteps that have occurred as a result of that. So the fact that you're looking at this cumulative profit and loss right now, which you can almost crosswalk with a little bit of careful attention from the QuickBooks profit and loss report itself to the cumulative months to date for this year part of the spreadsheet, is meant to give us some comfort that what we're getting is an actual good account of
You underestimate a little of whatever it takes to reconcile the two.
Well, if I seem to be underestimating it, I hope I'm not, because I've been watching her work.
Is this
It's
still
quite
a work in progress?
It is still a work in progress.
That's what I guess. This is how I had to scribble it up to
Well,
reconcile.
that looks a lot like mine.
So I'm glad you're on.
Yeah, what you'll find in particular, now we've talked about this before, one of the key things that's been frustrating about this is the line numbers that vary from place to place. And that's what I'm sure you've had to do, is to combine some of the lines that are the same thing in the spreadsheet. And she's shown good progress, I think, in capturing all of those cases and trying to move toward a system that will be consistent throughout. So, now she volunteered to come to the meeting tonight, wanted to meet you guys, and I wanted you to meet her and give her a chance to answer any questions that you might have based on your preview of the reports that you're looking at. If you have any aside from the general remark about reconciliation, but have at it.
Brenda, do you do your work at home, or do you do your work here? Or,
I come in here.
and about when could we see you?
I'm Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday usually, between 9 and 3.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's a work in progress. I mean, we are looking to make sure that the time she spends is what's necessary to just to balance the books. And she's been very flexible in arranging that for us. It's been kind of front loaded just because of some of the things that you've observed already. That she's got a little bit of spinning up to do and some spade work to get the things in order. And once that happens, then hopefully we'll be able to make her a little more scarce, but certainly accessible to anyone who will visit and get a little closer look at that part of the process.
So the goal would be that these items would more closely align.
The goal is to have everything quickly generated out of QuickBooks, no Excel spreadsheets needed, just because that increases the risk of error, human error, which is what I found in some of the March. It was carrying, there were a ton of linked spreadsheets, and that just encourages human error. So the goal is to get QuickBooks completely right, push a few buttons. Even if I download it into Excel and blow it out a little bit, it's still the QuickBooks information. So
Is our software up to date, or do we need to?
it is up to date. It's not used to its full potential right now. So, and no fault to anyone here, it's just, the more you play with it, the more experience you have, the better results you can, the better reports you can print. So, the more detailed, whatever.
Any other questions for Brenda or questions about the report in particular?
I had a question about the report. The line of credit item for April.
Yes, thank you. That's a question for me, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, those who were here last year will recall that it was right about this time of year that I had to get the line of credit because of cash flow, just to make sure we have enough to keep payroll going. I had to do it again this time, hopefully on a short-term basis and for much less amount than we did last year. I am still hopeful we'll take in enough late year money to be able to pay that back before the end of the fiscal year, so we can say we're clean when the first of July comes around. So this is I hope just a temporary measure that will take us past that. I did put this figure into the next budget as a hedge. That's all. I hope that's all it is. Of course, if we wind up being able to pay that out of this year's money, then that is actually but just to make sure we're covered all the way around. That's where it stands right now. So that's this year's line of credit, not last year's. Last year's is all paid off. But this I hope will be a very short-term operation.
And that wasn't reflected on the profit loss, was that just a function of it happening late?
Now that's a question for Brenda. She knows that better.
Well, the line of credit is showing on the balance sheet because it is a liability, but it's not on the profit loss. It's not truly not a revenue.
That's accounting practice.
Yeah, none of us are accountants, unfortunately. We'll have to rely on.
She knows about it though.
It's in the book. It's on the books. It's not showing on the profit and loss.
Anything else for this report? Is there a motion to accept this month's report?
I make motion that we accept it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
discussion? I don't see any. Those in favor of accepting the report, say aye. Anyone opposed? No, very well, the report is accepted. Brenda, I think I heard some small voices in the next room that you're welcome to attend to. Thank you so much for staying tonight. I know everybody here is glad to make your acquaintance, and we'll expand on that their next opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
My president.
The one other thing I have under this agenda item is the long-awaited amendment to the current budget. I've been promising you this for a while, and I think we're going to get it taken care of before the fiscal year runs out. These are all things that you know about, but this is for a first reading tonight, essentially just to tidy up the late execution of the contract on the road fund. That's the big item. And then just a couple of little back things that have come up since then, as you can see on the page, accounting for the neighborhood development grant that required, the forest fest activities that I'm trying to roll into the budget so that the money will be available for future activities. So you see it both in the revenue column as proceeds, and then as additional appropriation in the public works section, so it'll be there for them to use. And then finally, the additional money for that we got for the recodification grant. They gave us $800 extra for the legal review that you got the letter from the attorney on it. So that I've been wanting to get in whenever the opportunity came up. So that's what all of that is. And with your permission, I will ask the clerk to conduct the first reading of just the essentials here. And we can act on it next month.
You want me to read this? Is that where we are?
If you please.
The City of Autumn Park, Kentucky ordinance number to be determined series 2015. In the ordinance amending the city budget for the fiscal year 2015. The city budget for the fiscal year 2015 shall be amended as follows. General funds, revenue, property taxes 346, 320. Penalty and interest income 5,000. I think I'll just read the changes.
If you
What's
please.
changed? Okay. The ordinance recodification grant, 8,300. Neighborhood development grant, 10,000. Proceeds from community activities, $1,350. Appropriations are updated accordingly. Road fund, carryover fund balance, 93,000. Appropriations, street paving, 129,000. That's all. That's your changes.
Question?
I have one question, and I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the last meeting. This neighborhood development grant, can you elaborate on that, or what is that, $10,000? It's great, but I'm just curious, what is it?
You want to talk about it?
Say that again?
Neighborhood Development Fund,
Yeah,
grant?
that was it's a grant through Metro Louisville, and you partnership with them. Generally, it's available to
The late Jim King.
Jim King, yeah.
Awesome.
Generally, it's for neighborhoods within Metro Louisville's jurisdiction, and but obviously we service some of the areas around us, and as we've heard me say many times, we back each other up, and we have a good partnership. And I approached Jim at one of his advisory meetings over at Audubon Country Club and said, "Do you think we could qualify for this?" He goes, "How much do you want?" And I was afraid to say it, but I said, "Well, I think 10,000 would help us a lot." He goes, "I think we work something out. Call me and talk to my people." So basically what it has, the things we're asking for are things that help our police department operate, which will in turn, I was able to show in my grant application ways that would not only help us, but it could help them too, in our partnership. And we tweaked it here and there and made some changes, and you have to be very specific about what you want to do with it. Some of the things I wanted were like a new printer and copying system before we got our new ones. And he says, "Well, that'll help your office, but it's not going to help us in Metro Louisville. Doing things for your cars, getting computers for your police to operate, getting equipment for your police to do their jobs, that'll help your officers, who in turn help us at times. So, long story short, they, after months of back and forth, it actually got approved, and we received the first disbursement of half the 10,000, and we, that's what we got the Impala with, and shortly thereafter I was going to sell the Charger, which we're still going to do, but that was when it was involved in a wreck.
Well, you'll see procedurally what I've done here is in the monthly financial report is a line that says neighborhood development grant, and the amount received is $5,000 is what we've actually got. The appropriation line is blank because you haven't approved it. Right. But you will next month, and then it'll go into, so right now it's just excess income. But the idea is to put it in the regular budget process so that we can appropriate money to spend on.
Right. It certainly allows us to save money that the city would have had to spend on items that we need. And we'll put it towards that.
Anyway, that's why that line is formulated in the financial report, because as soon as this amendment is adopted, then we'll be able to reconcile all that balance. Okay, any other questions on the amendment? We'll return to a discussion of this to the extent that you need to next month after it's been introduced. But for now, the first reading, let's say, is complete. And that takes us to the engineer's report. Now, I'm not going to belabor this, but I sent you ahead a narrative that I got from Clint that basically consists of a list of his inventory of areas that we need to continue to attend to on the roads for future attention. I don't think there's anything there that's in critical shape right now, but there are things that we should probably attend to as we're able. To that end, what I've tried to set up in the amended budget, and you'll see it again in the future budget, is to go ahead and establish the road fund account so that whatever is in the road fund is made available for appropriation when it's needed. In other words, whatever money we project having in the road fund, you'll see in the appropriation line. Without any further specification right now, because it's a restricted fund. It can't be spent on anything but road work. So to the extent that road work is necessary, it's appropriated and available for that purpose. If we don't spend it, then it goes over next year. Let the road fund continue to build up assets as we'd like to for major needs that may come down the road. So this is our little list of things to continue to monitor, and as we need to take action on, we want to be there to do modest little things like this. And then the other thing he's done is give a little narrative on the options as he sees them in the entrances. So we'll return to discussion of that further on down. He's got some engineering estimates here. I haven't had a chance to turn those into formal bids or proposals yet. So consider these as just sort of engineer's estimates at the moment. And to my mind, they're probably a lot larger than they'll eventually need to be. At least I hope so.
And keep in mind, his discussion here does not include the spotlights that are up there. It seems to talk only about the new lights. So we don't want to forget that, as well as electrical outlets as well.
I mean, there are a lot of additional little things that need to be worked into this. And he was just focusing primarily on the columns themselves.
Yeah, I want those items to fall through.
Yeah, when we get to the next to the proposed budget, we'll talk a little more about some of the things that could be included in the budget line there. But for now, any questions about this report? And I'm not prepared to finalize a replacement for Clint tonight, but I hope it will be soon. We actually have gone through a couple of candidates. That's a real attractive possibility, so I expect to be able to report to you on that one next week.
The candidate is here.
Well, I just don't know if he wants to be interviewed
Oh,
right now.
okay. I'm sorry.
I'm trying not to how you do so. But I'll work with it. So any other questions on Clint's report?
Are any of these, I'm not the favor, but if some of these things are failures have to.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but we'll pursue it. Anything else? Okay. I see Mr. Zinner, and you have a forest board report in your desk, if you haven't discovered it already.
The game's not good tonight.
Oh, okay, and you get the whole thing? Very well.
Well, actually, I'm going to I don't actually know what people do. Let me know if you
I got it, but I wasn't.
The high point to the forest fire, we are in between our two ordinances. Mr. Jones is working with it, but once we get,
You probably need to
We
stand
can't hear
down.
you.
Yeah, 'cause
Can
we
you
can't
come up
hear
here to the
you.
podium so we can hear you? Your voice is kind of almost as soft as mine.
Can you hear me now? Everybody hear me? The chief things I think to touch on is that it's a relatively quiet planting season. We're filling in some places, Anderson's had planting, but we're not doing a big easement push this year. Partially because Leah is going out to assess places where there were no trees. The target was to look at houses that essentially had no trees. And she got very few takers in terms of replanting those lots. So we have not had a big easement push the way we did in the previous couple of years. But the park's pretty well fully stocked. The plant health program is in good order, treating all the dogwoods, prevent powder mildew and things like that are in good order. Jennifer Jones and I are going to be rewriting the ordinances. Me, because I did a rewrite in 2008 that sort of never went anywhere, and Jennifer, because she's had a lot of nonprofit experience and kind of new eyes, and we're actually starting somewhat from scratch. And we'll then be passing by drafts to get as wide an input as we can. So we want as much buy-in as we can, especially kind of try to propose some new ideas about how we look at things and how we address things. So we're starting from a model ordinance developed by small towns that covers everything ways. That's really what we say. And we should have that done in the time course that Lauren made out for us. And then the last thing is that will come up during the budget thing is the forest board has each year had a kind of budget and a bid process with people like Windwalkers and parks. We walk through every July to assess needs. And so we took that next step, and you should have received our sort of draft of that, and Jordan's been working to work realistically into your budget. So I was here mainly to answer any questions about that. I will say one thing about it now. Things that you defer, like removals, which tend to be the largest single costs, they don't go away. Those trees are going to die, whether we get them down now or get them down later. And the only thing that happens by not prioritizing them and moving ahead with it is that if they come down themselves, they damage everything around them. The pin oak in Robin alone took out 4 mature trees and 4 trees that were all planted in place within 2 or 3 years. So a single tree does enormous damage in the rest of the park if it's not timely in approach. So that's my little plea about just because it isn't entirely dead yet doesn't mean that it won't be a bigger problem in the long run. It won't go away. That's it. Any questions?
Miss Ann, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you bid out each job, or do you work with somebody for the whole year? How does that work?
In parks,
Yes.
okay. In parks, we have had the best success dealing with Illinois. And that's because we can say to them, okay, I want this level of structural cleaning, and they understand what we're talking about. So the level of supervision or, backtracking if somebody did it wrong is minimal. The thing that we bid, 3 bids for is removals.
Gotcha.
Because removals, you may as well go with the insured people who have the best equipment at that moment who are free. And so we had 3 bids for the actual bids that we did. And we try to also get anybody else involved if we can. 2 of the ashes that had to come down were taken down by LG&E for us, even though they were marginal, they still came out for us. So we're always looking to leverage as much, combination as we can. But for plant health issues and for structural cleaning issues, and what has worked well for us with Lindwalker is we always do time and materials, which means that if I'm there or Betty's there, they can ask us, do you really want us to go ahead with this? This will take another hour. Does it need to be done? And if it doesn't, we can say, no, we want to save that hour, and what we looked at, and we'll use it in order. And we did that a lot in dealing with the Oaks in Oracle and Jefferson. And we get a great deal more done doing it that way rather than bidding it as a job.
Gotcha.
You just, so, and we can also stop if it can't be done in the time that we budgeted in on. So, and I must say that they gave us 40 yards. How much mulch did Carol?
Way too much for one person to do.
Yeah, that was all free mulch. Having a relationship with someone who's doing your major certified arborist work has worked well for us. And we'll talk about that a little later because we want to develop a more strong relationships. Okay, that's it.
Anything else, Fran?
Just to say, the Lindwalker guys have been very great supporters of our neighborhood and good to work with. They're passionate about trees, so their interests align with ours, and it's more than just a business relationship, I think.
They think we do a good job. They like coming here.
Well, hold that thought, because as Ann says, we'll return to it.
And that they were sponsors of our Forest Fest and actually had a tree climbing demonstration. I hope you enjoyed.
And some free maintenance work in the.
Yeah, that's right. Free maintenance along with.
Very well. Well, let's forge on ahead and see if we can get back to that item. In the rush to finish up the budget and to get, in particular, to get the tax bills out, Jeanette has just found it impossible to get the minutes done from the April meetings, one of which was very short, the other one a little longer. But I will ask your indulgence, and we'll cover all those next time. I think once the bills are all on the street as they are now, we should be able to catch up on those pretty quickly. I apologize for the lapse, but I ask your indulgence. Hopefully we can return to those without too much loss of memory in the process. And with that, Mrs. Stevens, may I ask you to get the action items, those who were in your desk, to everybody found them?
Right, okay, let's start, number 32, the personnel manual. We had last time, no progress, is that any change with that?
We've done some studying of it, but there's no pen to paper at this point. But what we've been doing is looking at the civil service implications. Steve's been working on that.
What you mean, what we got from
There's been a number of civil service questions raised that are going to have to be rolled into this, so that becomes part of this effort now that will unfortunately make it even larger than it was already, but that's business. And so,
I did have a question. Is any of this can be done? I noted that in the responses on the ordinances, there were a couple related to the positions, I think.
civil service regulations impact on those structures and those decisions. That's a part of what we're trying to grapple with right now. So, yeah, absolutely, those are going to have to be resolved in the course of, well, probably parallel with the application. Because as you say, there are pieces of that on both the legal side and the administrative side. So we're not as far along on that as I keep saying we would like to be, but just making sure we got the whole package.
A subset of that might be a bit smaller chunk to bite off sooner that might be helpful are the job descriptions, particularly for public works. I think that would help people in general have a proper set of expectations for, what they see getting done, rather than constantly having the question, is this a public works job, or how often should this job get done? We need something to give people some guidance.
Well, and I sort of optimistically think that stuff like that will sort of dovetail with the effort to get orientation materials together that I keep promising you. Because that's really what you're talking about, is making sure that everybody at the table and anybody else who's interested knows what to do. And I think they pretty well know what they're doing, but the idea is that it should be helpful.
But how often do parks get mowed? How often do drains get cleaned out? How often do trash cans get emptied? Those things, so that people have a realistic set of expectations.
Yeah, and if there is something to look forward to in the summertime besides swimming pools, it'll be having the opportunity to return to some of those things that we've been struggling with through the spring budget and tax cycle, and hopefully that will give me the opportunity to make fewer excuses for not being further ahead on them.
I have kind of an unrelated question. Is Jason back? When does business as usual resume? Because I noticed that, I know it's going to take a while for him to get all the parks and everything caught up. I was just wondering.
He was back last week, and
Okay.
I think cut all the parts. Also, and is struggling to catch up. He had some coverage from Doug's mechanic while he was away, which was welcome. But I didn't want to abuse that if I can help it, so he's been working to catch up on everything else.
Well, I understand why he was gone. I was just wondering.
Yep. He is still needing little snippets of time here and there to attend to affairs, but by and large, he's back.
Okay, thank you. All right, 48, the ordinances. I think we've got the update.
Yeah.
Received the.
You know where that's going. I'm intending to solicit participation in the rest of the review that needs to be done. Coming out for your, very short. We've got the draft. Now it's a question of breaking it up and seeing how much up we get, refining it and making it alcohol. That's the main thing lacking in the application process so far, is these are people in Lexington who are working towards, we need to work with.
Website enhancements, the last update was we were going to have an upgrade in May. Is that correct?
And it's completed.
Is it finished?
It's finished.
Woohoo!
Cross it off, huh?
You bet.
Well, I didn't mean the enhancements were necessarily finished, but the software upgrade is finished.
Right. We're
So
still working on
We can begin to
the,
work on the inputs again.
yeah, we're still working on the police page. That one still needs to be finished, and it'll be always ongoing, but the bulk of it is completed.
Yeah, I leave it to you, council, what you want to do with items like this that are going to be
I think
ongoing.
it's healthy to find out what's going on and
Yeah,
talk about it on this.
I sort of favor leaving it on there for
I do too.
visibility, just so we can keep talking about it, but
Yep.
that's fine. Whether there's a major jump forward on a given occasion or not. But I'm glad to hear this one. This is news to me. So,
We can cross off the next one, so.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Number 58, bookkeeper. Is there else that's coming again?
I'm very encouraged cautious about.
Happens again, before you put it back on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very cautious about that segment of the work, as you know, and I expect to continue to be, but I'm pretty optimistic at the moment, and we do have some.
All right, mark that complete. Moving on to 61, the procedures and standards for financial reporting and documentation. That was delayed because folks on bookkeeper, so is that just gonna pick back up now?
Well, you've heard Brenda, and I think we can move ahead with that forthwith. Now that she's got a report under her belt, and has a good sense of where we need to go.
All right, next, number 63, the audit department newsletter. Last update was the 50-plus signed up for MailChimp. Question of can we get a mailing list as many people as possible in case we need to do surveys. I'm not sure if there's any update on this item.
Ms. Ford, how many do you know how many we have on MailChimp right now?
53.
53.
Now, I had an epiphany there, thanks to Daryl, this week, who suggested that we ought to put the meeting agenda out as a MailChimp.
And it did.
And I mean, we ought to be doing a lot of stuff like that, because that's the way we increase participation, is by putting things out there that people want to see.
Well, and another opportunity that we maybe missed, and maybe you had as much help as you wanted Saturday at Robin Park, but the workday for the,
Yeah, and of course, I put that on Facebook page, and it had a couple of hundred hits, but we need to continue to beat that drum, to try and improve participation.
But it only is successful if people sign up. And that's the issue we have right now with only 53 people out of 1,000.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, but that's.
I think one agenda, we have to really keep advertising it, keep throwing it out there as much as you can on all our Audubon Facebook pages. Just keep throwing it out there once a month and getting people to do it.
well, I think maybe it's worth one effort with our, that Joanne calls them, her mail elves or something.
Yes.
To do just an exclusive distribution of nothing but city council would love to have better communication with you. One way we would like to do that and give instructions for how they can sign up with our distribution. And make sure that it gets, in that way, make sure it gets in everybody's hands in a way that it's not as likely to be overlooked. Just a part of a newsletter. Some newsletters don't get read at all. Some of them don't get read start to finish. I think it's worth one effort like that at least.
I'd like to see that, and Dorn, if you wouldn't mind, it's easier if you attach a link. So I would like to see on Facebook just another announcement and then the link to where you actually go to sign up for the MailChimp. That way all people have to do is click that link and it takes them right there. And you enter your name, your email address, and it's done. And once you sign up once, you're on it forever until you can opt out, which legally you have to have an opt out. But I think if we do that in combination with what you said, Daryl, I think it's still a process. Somebody reading that, trying to get on the website, is still a lot more complicated than just having a link on Facebook, which will take them right to it. So, but if we do a combination of both, I think we'll be getting somewhere.
We haven't added, on MailChimp, they provide the coding for free that you can copy and paste it into our website.
It's there.
So, okay. And I think that there might actually be an option to copy and paste that just sign up bar on Facebook as well.
Okay.
They have different types of coding to embed it in different places.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that. We'll make that happen. That's good.
Just another option maybe. We've got those signs we put out for the garden club and the Dogwood Festival and everything else. Could we just make a big sign, put at the entrance and say, interested in getting email updates through Robin Park, go here and sign up, one click easy, or, just something that people just drive in and they see it. That's another reminder.
Well, we've got that billboard out there by the train tracks. We can put something on there.
Well, I'm just saying, if that was done in conjunction with a special distribution, that's just another thing people see.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to get carried away with putting the signs up in Robin Park, but this would be a one-timer. see what we can do.
A bike lane.
All right, item 64, contact info for the boards. I think there was some last information you need to provide, Laura.
Well, now that the project is finished, I guess we can resume doing that. Oh, where were we on that, Council, if you don't mind me asking again? Were we gonna try and list everyone, every member of every board?
We had a member we talked about, because we discussed this, we were
Well, I
gonna have
don't know.
one person in charge of each board,
Yeah.
as the main go-to person.
Yeah.
And then, rather than broadcasting their email on there, we were gonna have just their name, where you click it, and it'll be a link that takes
Right.
you to their email.
But you're essentially thinking of the chair of each of the boards being the contact.
Right, because you were gonna decide that, and then from there, we could move to step
And that
two.
makes sense to me, rather than just having a willy.
Having everybody's, right.
So, okay, so
I'll make that
I'll get a little more
reference.
on that.
I'll make that reference because the actual documentation for February said board members, not just chair.
Well, that's one reason I want to clarify clear on where they're going. But, okay, well, I'm not getting more on that.
65, update the council introduction packet.
Yeah, I still want to have products to show you, but I have been thinking about that, and I'm wondering, Tony, if I can just borrow liberally from your Dropbox collection. Because I think there's lots of useful stuff in there that ought to be available. Well, it already is available.
Why, sir? Yeah.
But I think if we can consolidate all that into a booklet, that'll get us a good way along. I'm trying, as you know, my instinct was to move away from the big thick thing that somebody found from a council or two ago that probably nobody ever got all the way through, because there's an awful lot of stuff in there that seems sort of arcane. So I'd really like to put on something that people will read and that actually has the useful information that you need, and that's why I'm trying to take some time with it. But I think that collection would be really useful. So if you don't mind me just kind of picking and choosing stuff out of that fits that description, it's probably going to be the main reference point.
Thanks. All right, 65, the standard budget calendar. I think the last that we talked in our meeting in April, we had looking for more input, which would be from you, Tony, that was the meeting that you was.
Yeah, in our special meeting, I think Dorn hit on it again. I did give the Excel copy to Dorn, but I think it's still kind of a work in progress, right, Dorn?
Tony, can you and I get together sometime and maybe work on?
Yeah, and if you want me
And
to
it's
too, because the main thing I had been concerned about was that we get all of the tax wickets in there. And the only one that was in the last one was the insurance tax, where we got all these other things, the decision points to get.
It's in Dropbox, both the Excel and the PDF, and you and if you want to get together and start with
Yeah.
that, not a problem.
Pretty good place for mine.
Not a problem. I'm going to add that down too.
We did have an item that was sent to me via email that came in after I posted this to Dropbox.
Probably what I'm getting ready to say.
It was from Joanne, and it was regarding new resident packet and sending information to when getting it off the rolls, I guess.
What do we currently have now? Jeanette, do we have a new neighbor, like if somebody moves to a neighborhood, do we currently have a packet that they get or anything like that?
No, we don't.
Well, we've got this little booklet that was produced some years ago that's mainly an extract of the ordinances. And she gives that to anybody who comes in the door. The problem has been that it's just not very systematic because we don't get
Right.
new resident
Information.
identification until they happen to walk in or they get a tax bill or something. What Joanne found was some sort of a real estate fee that she came by somehow. That theoretically.
I've got her fee.
Yeah, well, we don't know right now, but
Correct.
This feed supposedly has a consolidated listing of all of the purchases in whatever neighborhood you choose. And I haven't had a chance to check that out yet, but if it's true, then that would give us the basic data we need to be able to conduct a program with, so we know who we need to contact, and then we figure out what to send.
But how, are you talking about a yearly report of that, or do you get that information as a new resident takes ownership of the house?
This is proprietary realtor information that she's just tapped into somehow. That's supposed to be a consolidated, ongoing
But it would
listing.
be great if somebody made an introduction with any new resident.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The problem has just been knowing who they are and when they
timely of
are.
a manner.
Yeah. And if this database provides a means, an entrance to being able to make those contacts, then.
Since she's given it to me, she's already sent me 3 emails saying these 3 don't apply. So I don't know how accurate it is, because I haven't had it better than a week, and she's already emailed me to take this person off, take this person off,
Well,
take this
okay,
person.
so this is a work in progress.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Well, there should be some way of knowing.
Well, the paper listed, and you can get on PBA, there's other mediums to finding out. But usually the old thing, you sit there and wait for the paper for it to list it. If you get the paper, it shows it. Every Sunday, there's a section that shows the recent sales, the recent transfers of
Well, I mean,
the title.
I'd like it a lot if we could get a more focused feed of that, because that's pretty taxing. You have to sit there and read through the whole system.
You go right,
They're by zip code.
you go right by zip code, it's right there,
Oh, is it by
every
zip code?
Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's- Haven't looked at that in years, but
I haven't
it's still
either.
there.
Yep.
As long as the paper.
It shows the exact spelling of the name of who sold it and who bought it. And to me, if you just look at it every Sunday,
A lot of those transfers are gonna be misleading because they'll be to someone who's working on the house to flip it, who's not settled,
This was gonna be easy, it's been done already, but.
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
We need to wrestle with it, that's all.
Well, but I don't know that doesn't mean that they shouldn't get a copy of the ordinances. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
intending to buy a house and sell it to somebody else.
They still, even if you're remodeling a house or whatever these people are doing, they still need to know our code and ordinances. What's gonna happen when they start cutting down trees and they say, oh, I didn't know about that. I mean, I still think it's important that they get the code and ordinances that apply.
All right, we'll keep working on it.
And a welcome.
That too. Sorry.
It goes well to have the welcome first.
Yep.
Rather than the, did you know you're not supposed to? That's happened to someone.
Better than the hard way.
So, aside from that, are there any new action items that anybody has? Okay, and just as an FYI, as these are updated, they are posted in the action items folder in the Dropbox. And to reduce the confusion that Dora and I had today, the date on the file will be the date of the meeting they'll be presented at, as opposed to the meeting they were reviewed in.
Thank you for that indulgence. That's why they were in your desks tonight instead of in the folders, because I couldn't find it. I thought it was last month. Anyway, thank you for that.
So they're clarification, always. Okay.
Well done. Very well, thanks a lot. I have one other item of unfinished business. There was a fellow who, Nancy, you may remember, about a year ago, proposed to put up a 6-foot fence in his backyard. He was back on Eagles Pass, but not on one of the corners where that's automatically provided for. He must put it up anyway. Yeah, so he has asked for a variance to construct this 6-foot fence. He's made an application. As you may or may not know, the procedure is that the council has to schedule a hearing for him to present his case and for you to decide whether he will have a variance or not. Typically, the way that's been done, this is not set in stone anywhere, but typically what we do is schedule the variance hearing just before the next council meeting, because that's when action can be taken on the request, is at the next regular meeting. So if we have the hearing just before the meeting, then we can act on it right away while it's still fresh. Like I said, it's not set in stone, but and if somebody has a different suggestion, that's fine, but my proposal otherwise would be that we just meet a half an hour before regular time next month.
6:30 on June 15th.
And hear this request.
Will we have any information prior to him?
In an
showing
email
up?
or?
I'll review his application, and if there's anything else that he needs to supply according to the ordinance, I'll get that before I circulate it, but then I'll send it right away.
We'll put it in your packets prior to.
Yeah, or sooner, if we can get it done. Because I need to keep loading these packets up, they're getting pretty thick as it is. But in any case, yeah, we'll get that stuff done as quick as we put it all together.
And you said this person was not on the corner? Because I remember coming to, I think, the meeting last meeting when I wasn't on the council when this was discussed, and I thought it was a corner house. That was what it
It's the
was.
second house that I remember.
No, it's a corner.
Oh, it is?
It's right on Audubon Parkway.
Yeah.
That sign that says, "Welcome to Audubon Parkway" down there in the end, he is the
Northeast
house
corner.
right in front. His, on one side of it is 6-foot fence, and then he's just open. Y'all know where that sign is down there on Audubon Park? When you come up there, he's that house right there.
Eagle Pass Farm,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's the northeast
Yes.
corner.
Mhm.
But I guess when you said that there's already a provision for being in a corner,
Well, I'm not misspoke. The provision is if you're on the opposite, at the other end of the street on the corner, facing S Lane.
oh,
That's already provided in the ordinance, but that's not. Okay, is everybody content to do that then? We'll just meet half an hour ahead, early next month. Okay, hearing no objections, we'll declare that. And let us move on then to our main event this evening, which is the budget proposal and message. You have, I hope, had a chance to look over the message and the proposal. As I recall, last year, I'm sorry. Let me mention another thing quickly, because Laura has also included an update on the survey questions. You remember that she did the analysis on last month. So this is for your information, and I'm with all of the same caveats that I know she already knows about. This was a survey that was intended to get some quick feedback from whatever residents we could put there on, and we've got upwards of almost 40 in some cases now, which is somewhat more than we had before. It's still a fairly small number. It's not a scientific sample, and it's not a set of validated questions, but it maybe has some indicative value to you in terms of what this particular group of people thought was more or less important in the items that we put out to them in the survey. So let me just leave you with that, if I may, for your information. And I should be returning to it before long. So now with that, back to the budget proposal. I have tried to make a proposal for you that will take advantage of whatever resources we can acquire in the normal collection of revenue that you're used to. And my aim is to supplement that where there are still shortfalls with some of the other innovative avenues that we've talked about as we're able to pursue them. We've talked about possibly putting things to referenda or establishing contributory mechanisms for particular projects and things like that. So you won't see a lot of that reflected here at this point because it's all new ground to plow. But as far as disposition of the regular revenue streams that we're used to getting, what you see here is an opening shot in formulating the distribution of those resources for the coming year. I've tried to highlight in the cover message, which, once you had a chance to look this over, it seems to me last year I went ahead and posted this for the public after the council had a chance to look at it. The only thing the statute requires is that I present this to the council. But with your permission, and after you had a crack at it, I think this would be good information for the rest of the town as well, to give them an idea of where we might be going with this thing. Recognizing that it's still just a proposal, it's still subject to additional refinement and amendment before we go final with it. It's a place to start. You will see in here that with the expectation I have that our debts at the end of the fiscal year will be minimal. Although I thought I had better go ahead and leave this existing line of credit from this past month in there as a possible liquidation to be done in the new year. I hope we won't have to do that. And if we don't have to do it, then there's some money we can reallocate when the time comes. But beyond that, I'm trying to use the remaining funds that are still available after a reduced revenue stream. Why is that? You say, well, you're all well aware of the new property valuations that were done this year, and the fact that the tax rate had to be reduced in order to keep our overall expected income at the same level as before. So where we had a 29.4 cent per 100 tax rate for property last year, it's now 27 cents as you confirmed last month. And having left that essentially as a flat rate, we call it 27 cents as opposed to 26.7, whatever the exact flat rate was. And in any case, it's essentially a flat rate. So the only additional stream we have is the 0.75% increase that we assessed the month before that in the insurance tax. On the other hand, we've got, as you'll see when you look at the proposal, I think some realism applied to some of the other revenue streams that we've had in the past that just haven't met up to expectations. So for example, in the case of court revenue, we just haven't been going to court as much because we've been doing less work outside of London Park, where most of that revenue comes from. And consequently, the budget projection that I've made for court revenue is down to about 2/3 of what it was this year, just based on the amount that they'll actually draw. If you look back at the financial report, I used the most current financial report and kind of just extrapolated that out through the balance of the year. You know, I'm always nervous about doing linear projections, but at 10 months out of 12, you've got to figure that you can't be that far off. So basically, it looked like 8,000 was about as much as we could hope to bring in this year based on what we're doing right now. I expect we'll be doing the same thing next year that we're doing right now, more or less. And consequently, that's a revenue reduction that just seems realistic to consider. Same thing with parking fines and towing. We just haven't been doing as much of it.
Why is that? Or can you help answer that, Chief? If we went, we're losing $8,000 in court revenue and $2,500 in parking fines. Went from 14 grand and down to $8 grand. Is there a reason or?
Absolutely. The state allocates, or administrative offices of courts allocates $20, goes back to the police agency.
AOC, right.
For tickets that get adjudicated. There's 5 at the most. Which you write 5 tickets and they all go to court, that's $100. And so you can do the math. It's not easy to get that up there if you're out writing tickets. One of the things I heard when I came here is that the officers were spending too much time on Preston Highway and Poplar doing other, the younger officers, especially that were here before, wanted to do a lot more enforcement. Well, what I heard was, we want you in the park more. And even though the officers, there is some validation to it that, well, when we're out there driving around in and out of the park, they see the cars and they know we have our own police force and maybe they're not wanting to go in there. And I do believe there is some of that truth to that. But on the other hand, there's more action outside the park, and people that want to be active and make traffic stops and look for bad guys are going to do more of it outside. So that was a trade-off. I told them, we'll spend a lot, we'll make sure they're spending the majority of the time here, except when they're going to Parkway Village or running over the hospital. But when that happens, we're not writing tickets. We're not making arrests. Some of the parking revenue came from Dave's, because every car we have them tow, they pay us $25 at the impoundment fee. And Dave actually called me and said, "Are you all using somebody else?" And then he did it about a month and a half ago. I said, "No." I said, "Well, you're not calling us anymore." I said, "We're not towing any more cars. We're not getting as many drunks."
What about your fines inside the park? Did they drop?
The
Well,
fines.
that's the ones he's talking about.
Yeah.
You said we was talking about outside.
No, no, no.
Well, of course, yeah, I'm-
Towing is usually.
No, I'm talking about the fines inside the park. After 3 o'clock and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think we're probably writing as many of those, because I've been keeping track of them, every one. There's a difference between writing them and getting them paid. And so I'd actually talked to Dort about that. Just a friendly, stern letter that says, if these have gone unpaid, and you could be subject to more additional fines or possible towing fees and impoundment fees, and see how that works, and then see if anybody, if we get some more revenue from that, and then the second option after that is actually an attorney written letter, and then you follow through with it.
Right.
But the vast majority of our court revenue has never come from your all's parking fines. It's come from the ALC citation. And you can tell, like when we're out working the grants, the ticket revenue spikes, and you'll see that in the quarters. Like we're getting ready to started today our click it ticket that runs through June 1st. So we're trying to get that works of that. So we'll hopefully write a bunch of tickets, and then a lot will go to court, and you'll get a little more ticket revenues. It's a trade-off. Fewer tickets and stops outside the park equal fewer less revenue for the city. It can actually be pretty lucrative, fun with not that much work. But I work for you guys. I do. You asked me to.
I said it's $11,000 hit, so I had to ask the question.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
I prefer law enforcement to be driven by law enforcement
I agree.
needs, not revenue.
Yeah.
And I have, like I said, I work for you all. I have no problem. I'd rather keep homeowners safe and bad guys out, and have I've told my guys I validate their performance by the lack of activity. In other words, lack of criminal activity. When we've got the numbers we've had for the last year and a half compared to the rest of the zip code, we got a success story going on. Honestly, I don't care if they ever write a ticket if we don't have any break-ins, car thefts from cars.
Right on.
So,
Thank you. And the highway safety grant, does that expire? I know we haven't got done there yet.
That'll
So
be
that
done
expired
September 30th. We're done with that.
September 30. And can we reapply for that or no?
No, we opted not to, because it wasn't being worked by the officers as much as we thought they were, and especially now that we got retired guys. If they wanted to work a lot more, they would have gotten full-time jobs.
Now, bear in mind, too,
Thank you, sir.
that when we get down to the section where we're talking about grants and that sort of targeted income, that those are generally money in, money out. So if you see a lowered revenue stream on those, you're also going to see a lowered expenditure stream back to
I get it.
departments.
Right.
Because that's just a pass-through, basically.
Right.
I was just asking if we could do the grant again.
Yeah.
That's all.
Since we couldn't really meet what we had promised them as far as the dollars spent and hours spent, it just wasn't practical for us to ask to renew it.
But you'll see that in the case of the highway safety grant, and likewise the neighborhood development grant, it was a one-time deal.
And the Homeland Security grant.
And now the Homeland Security grant,
For
conversely,
16.
is something that
That's what we're hoping to
That's what we're planning. Yeah,
We
that's
actually
all
got
I'm
one last year, but it was contingent. It was a matching dollar. We're going to give you this money, and you spend the other half of it. Well, last year we didn't have the other half of it, so we actually had to say decline the offer of the grant. We're going to see if we're in a little bit better shape this year, and we could and get the
Yeah,
equipment we need.
you'll notice when we get back to Doug's department that there's a line in there for equipment that includes an assumption of getting this grant out an equal amount of our own money to make it happen. So I'm hoping that'll be successful. And if, of course, if we run across, just as in the amendment you just looked at, if we run across any other grants and any other revenue enhancers that come along the way, I'll be coming back to them, we'll throw those into the mix too. But the balance right now between the activity changes I mentioned and the grant changes is that we're looking at somewhat less money in the year coming up. But at the same time, having liquidated most of our debt last year, we still have got some money that we can apply to some of the things that we put off up until now. And that's where most of the increased appropriations occur. There were some small raises applied last year to some of the employees. Some we could do, primarily it was the police officers and there were a few others. I've tried to take care of the rest of the folks this year that we weren't able to take care of last year or didn't take adequate care of last year. So you see a little more money in the salary lines in the various departments. I think that those are fairly modest increases that I hope will enhance morale and performance by the staff. Not that they aren't doing a great job to begin with, so in a way these are partially rewards for jobs well done. But beyond that, there are a couple of obvious lines that needed to be increased that we wound up being balanced on this year for bookkeeping and legal services that I'm trying to give us enough of a cushion in the year to come that we can take whatever comes and have enough to get by. Repairs and maintenance I wanted to mention because there's a fairly sizable jump there. In fact, it's even bigger than it looks because of the $16,000 we had spent this year. We spent most of it on the computer project. And so consequently, there's $5,000 or $6,000 of just routine maintenance that was also spent. We wound up overspending that line somewhat as a result. But the additional amount that's thrown in this time is primarily intended to do something about the air in here. I don't know if you're as uncomfortable as I am right now, but
Is 11,000 enough though? I mean,
well,
you're talking.
well, this is 11,000 above the 16. I don't have to buy any more computers.
Well,
Yeah, that was about a $12,000 hit last year.
Okay.
So, balance that against the amount that we actually overspent.
I got you. So now you're
I think we'll
23.
have enough to buy what we need to in the way of air conditioning and maybe get a paint job on the outside before the windows fall out.
Do we have some proposals on those things yet?
Yeah.
So you're confident?
I've only got one painting bid right now that's in the range that I have programmed in here. What you see of the 27,000, about 20 of that is intended to be for HVAC and paint. I think about 15 of that will be for the HVAC, and that's assuming we buy new stuff at as cheap a price as we can find it. But the stuff we have right now is museum worthy, I think.
You have a plan on replacing some of these windows? Yeah, I know you can't do them all at once, it's not cost prohibitive, but no, that you put in a nice new heating air system and then you lose it right out your windows and doors. So have we done an analysis or looking at kind of maybe, should we do a couple windows a year or two, or? Because that's gonna be a huge hit. You try to do that in 1 year, that's 40, 50, 60 grand, and at some point it has to be done.
You're right, and I haven't done that analysis as yet, but it needs to be done.
I'm just bringing it up because if there's some money, it wouldn't hurt to do a couple or
We
you
still
have a
have
plan.
window salesmen
I
and
think
residents in the neighborhood.
I don't know that.
We have had it.
You're talking about people who live here, or
Yes.
just people who've been visiting? Okay, well,
People who live here that.
talk to me after the meeting.
No, I just think it's worth discussing
Oh,
because
absolutely.
we make repairs to heat and air and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
watch it, it's
yeah.
gonna go right out the door.
I made a casual remark to somebody in the course of talking, a preliminary talk about this, that any kind of energy credits we might be able to get for new HVAC equipment would probably be gated by the energy loss through the windows, since they're all original wood, single pane, leaky. Yeah, I don't know how much of
Spraying
that.
and painting the windows.
Because I don't know how much we're
Or
going to
paint,
spend on the HVAC. Whatever I can save on the HVAC.
Well,
we'll plow back in.
I was trying to save on painting too, rather than painting all the windows.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta
That was where I was going with that.
First thing I want to do is see if the painters can make the windows operative again.
but I don't really see any provision to offset that.
That 350, 471, 37 should be,
Well, I think,
discount.
no, I think you have to include the total amount. I'm saying
I don't-
maybe we should include a contingency in appropriations to to deduct from the one, with the 1% early payment. I mean, I don't know that we could.
Jeanette has some.
I just want to make you all aware that there are appeals right now for all those increases on these houses. And I've already got 2 that have been approved. So that's going to already go down. That money is already going to go down. I've already called Mel at the PBA so we can recalculate their taxes because they're going to move their houses down. 3 that called me and said, Jeanette, now don't send me that bill because we've won our appeal and it's going to go down. So when you're considering what you're going to put on what you're going to take in, you might want to consider that these people might win their appeal and how high it came in, it's going to drop. Are you, I mean, am I making my?
Yeah,
I just want to
and
make
it
sure.
reiterates,
I'm sorry?
it reiterates her point
Right,
that,
right.
that we're looking like we've got more revenue here than we're actually
Right.
going to have.
Right. But I just want you to also consider that when you're looking at the number.
And we need to reflect that one
Right.
way or the other.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure, realistically speaking, if we have to include in the budget the full amount of the tax bill, or whether we could reduce, like you said, Daryl, reduce the 350, 471, if that's the way to do it, or to add something in appropriations to account for that shortfall.
Well, the reason I left it in the budget is because this is the source document for our tax calculation for next year. And I prefer to base that calculation on the full
Well,
amount that we're
Right.
entitled to.
Well, that's fine.
If that's
But I think
indeed the
that we need
case,
to
yeah,
reduce-
this
we need
is
to-
the source
But
document.
yeah, we'll have to make some trade-offs someplace, but if you allow me that figure right there for future use,
Sure.
we'll have to see what else we can do, because I don't even, as I think about it right now, I don't know the answer to what happens to us in the case of successful appeals like that. I know the resident gets.
Mel says that we have to refund the money. I asked her.
Well, yeah, but what do we do?
Take a loss.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm afraid you're probably right.
Yeah,
But I don't like that answer, so
Right,
I'm
yeah.
going to
Well,
find another.
but I
one.
mean, would it be then, better to include, I mean, you made a provision to include the line of credit liquidation. Should we add another line item for potential refunds or early payments or something? Well, that's what I'm saying, you would, they would balance out, because what I'm saying is
Bad news
somewhere
is
in
you have
here.
to not do something else.
No, well, no, it
The
will.
number's already there on the
Yeah,
revenue
you
side,
gotta-
included in Dorn's.
You got it, I mean, you're
We need-
including, I'm just saying, if you increase that here, then yeah, something else is gonna have to shorten up, obviously. But I mean, at least we've made an acknowledgement that we've made provision for that. So if we don't have to spend it, well, we're doing good, but. I agree. I know that was a topic of conversation a couple times while we were looking at the tax rate.
I'm inclined to think we ought to wait a little while and see what happens to these appeals before we jump into that. Just because it's kind of scary, but, and it's just a blank right now.
Well, I think we can agree in principle that there needs to be a number on the debit side. It's just a matter of getting, at some point, making the best guess that we can. In a few weeks, we'll have a better guess than we would now.
Well, or we may not even have it in a few weeks, but, and if we don't, I may ask you to set that aside for an amendment later, but.
Well, but, I mean, even if we don't know about the appeals, I think we have history about the early payments.
Yeah, there's 3,000 already that need to come.
Well, but that's 1 year of history, which, as I said, to my mind, is potentially kind of a special case because of the way we moved the tax schedule last year. And it made it a lot easier for people to pay earlier, to pay early than they had been in years past. I'll be interested to see if that pattern holds up this time in the future. I don't know whether it will or not. But there's a reasonable explanation for why we had so many early payments last year. Whether that'll hold up this year or not, I can't say. I hope we'll be able to figure it out. And I mean, that again, that's something we'll know by the end of June.
We will
So
know.
we'd be in a better position then to put a figure in here that would actually mean something. Once we know how many discounts have been awarded. And hopefully by that time we'll have some better idea of how many appeals. I don't know what the timeline is.
They just put it on the news that PBA expanded the appeal process. Till when? Did you, I was trying to listen and the dog started barking.
And that's only the deadline to initiate the appeal.
Right,
I'm
the
sure
whole
that
process
doesn't
is much longer.
say when the appeal's gonna be settled.
Right, right.
Well, maybe we can at least find out how many appeals are on file by that time.
I've got to call into Mel. I do have one more call into her.
We'll keep working on it. It's a fair point. And this is an awkward year for all of those reasons. So we'll see how we do. And if we wind up having to shave back some of these things that we're trying to do.
Well, obviously, something's, we're gonna have to shave somewhere.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, anything we put down here has to come out of something else because this is balanced right now.
Yes.
So we'll have to either plan to do something less or not do something to the extent we have to put that money aside. But we may have to put it. It's life's like. So of that category of things, the other ones I want to mention are a chunk of money that we're putting in public. Well, the rest of the money, most of the rest of the new money is in public works for one reason or another. I tried putting up money in there to get a new plow truck because I'm struggling with this past winter or so because it's gotten to it's 15 years old now and has done nothing but heavy duty plowing work all that time and it's tired. We had a couple of instances this past winter where it took a real act of God to make it run. When it does run, it gets, when it's plowing, 5 or 6 miles a gallon. If you can believe that. And so, that caused Jason's fuel budget line to run over. So consequently, if there's a way to do that, we really should, just for peace of mind. Because if you noticed on Laura's survey,
That
guess
was
what
the
number one
highest,
item
the
was?
number one item was. Yes.
Snow.
With the lowest range of answers, so
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
across the
everybody
board
likes
very
snow.
high, yeah.
So that's why I hope we can do it. The other money there, public facilities, I really think we ought to put some money, that's the line there, all that would put whatever we can into the columns and the lights out there and the common areas. People have put forward some awful good ideas about adding some trash receptacles to some of the parks, as well as fixing the dings in the columns, as well as putting light back on them, as well as dressing them a little bit and really making those our signature entrance points. The capabilities that we have. The figure is kind of arbitrary. It's well below Clint's estimates of either one of the entrances, let alone both. If we took the high end his estimates for the work. But that's what I hope we can keep on that line if it's at all possible and get as much work done with it as we can. The Parks and Recreation line is a new line, but it's intended to be treated like a grant, like the grant things we talked about, where the revenue line that you see in the front has money in. I put $5,000 down. That's sort of arbitrary. The point being, whatever we put in there ought to be able to come out in expenditures for additional activities down the road. I'm trying to make it kind of a stovepipe.
They're basically self-sustaining.
Dedicated, self-sustaining operation, and they've done an excellent job of that so far. In fact, we're ahead of the forest best by the amount that I showed you in the current figures. So that's a sort of a placeholder. $5,000 is arbitrary, but it's money in, money out. That's the idea, is to set that up as self-sustaining.
In the current year's budget, we had 5,000 in there before.
Well, there was a line in there that was intended to be a grant for the guard dog that they never did use. So that's what most of it is. The rest of it is just that money for enforcement. So yeah, actually, it looks like reduction is really, we just didn't spend that money.
And is the budget, what would pay for some of the items I just proposed? I know it wouldn't pay for everything,
No, not
but this matches up.
That's
with
the idea,
that.
yeah. It pays for the stuff that's on there other than actual removals, and we'll have, I'm sure I have to find somebody to do that, but I'm hoping that we can put it off for a little while, because what it does cover is the health management items, so destruction, pruning, things like that, to maintain the trees that we have.
So, Ann's saying we need 33, 385, and we're showing we're gonna have 18.
Yeah,
Right now.
As I say, that's, I can take you line by line through her budget to show you.
No,
what's-
Just as a matter of procedure, we haven't even had a first reading of this yet, all right? So.
Correct.
Is it time really to be talking about these items, or are you just giving a preview?
Well, I'm just reviewing the proposal that I've.
Right, so we really ought to save some of this discussion until we have a.
Oh, sure, yeah, I mean, this is a very long introduction to sort of get the juices flowing, and we'll.
Because there's a number of things
Over the next month.
yeah.
But, now I want to give you a chance to talk about anything you feel like talking about tonight, because you had a chance to look over this proposal, and we're kind of going through some of the high points. Just sort of draw you out if you have any preliminary remarks to make before the actual.
Well, if you want a preliminary remark, one thought I had is maybe make this park entrance lighting a community fundraising project and move a big chunk of that 20 into the forest board budget.
We could do that. If I can find some money to put against those things that are not funded in the current budget from the forest board, then I'd love to do it. Because I'm looking for.
But we, there's been discussion in recent meetings, recent months, that residents have been in the past responsive to requests for fundraising efforts, and there's been indication that some would still be, and that would be a tangible thing to request that kind of effort on, where they could see what resulted. And as you can tell from Ann's detailed spreadsheet, they didn't just guess at $33,000. They had a plan, and what really strikes me about the forest board is, number two, their effort, the hard work they put in at no cost to us, their own volunteer hours. But number one, the expertise they have to exercise a plan like this, to execute a plan like this. So I think it's prudent on our part to support their efforts to the maximum degree we can. Now, of course, in my household, front entrance lighting is also lobbied heavily. So I don't want to dismiss that, but I think maybe that would be a prime target for the community fundraiser.
It could be done. Now, I will tell you my thought I'm looking at Ann's budget right now, if you want to follow this with me for a minute. Generally, the budget line, the proposed budget line that you're looking at covers plant health, hazards, both priority 1 and priority 2, and urban forestry services. It doesn't cover removals for reasons I gave. Those are very expensive, and I'm hoping we can just either find some other money for those down the road, or wait until next year if they'll last that long. We can put some more money into it then. They're going to have to be done. The question is just, could we afford to do it this year? And it seemed to me that the priority ought to go, and I had some conversations about this, that the priority ought to go to take care of the live trees. And get on the come with the dead ones, that we can buy a little more time to get that done, but I think Ann's got some input for us.
Yeah, let me just speak something. What I would suggest, Daryl, is I don't want to see no removal. I mean,
We can't hear you.
I don't want to see no removals, because if we defer those, we just end up losing work that's been done. And they are always cheaper when you do them with trees that are still climbable, that aren't just dead and falling apart. But I think what we can defer this year is the easement planting program, because we don't have enough people yet with dead ash standing to build the momentum for ash replacement. And so where I would see, and we have enough funds working through the garden club to do modest plantings. Our goal used to be 10 a year. We've done 5 this year. Okay, so if we had 5 in the fall, we could easily manage that through garden club resources after the tour hunt.
So
what I'm looking at, Jack, is the easement planting program. Okay, that 3,000 is oriented to building an ash replacement program, and I think that it's, that can be deferred. If we do that in a year, we'll have more people eager to do it.
So $4,250 can be deferred?
Yes, okay. And so I would shift, just in terms of emphasis, of what's the easiest thing to defer, that's the easiest thing to defer.
And also, I'm assuming the very first item, recreation, now that we have a Parks and
Yes.
Recreation Board,
Yes.
that $500 could
Yes.
come off.
Yes.
You still need the 500 for Playscape, is that still under your
No, I
auspices?
think that should go under Parks and Recreation, really.
Yeah, let me reiterate that the money you see in the budget right now, the 18K, is intended to cover land health, hazard pruning, priority 1 and priority 2, and urban forestry service. My aim was to displace the Parks and Rec stuff, as you suggested, because I think belongs to Parks and Rec. The planned health was going to go to the, that's included.
So-
Public gardens was going to go to the garden club.
Yes.
So the main items remaining are the ash removals, the easement planting program, which in my view is probably a good target for a fundraising effort.
Well, but it can also be deferred. It's not pressing.
Well, it's already been deferred. The question
Yeah.
is how will we cover it if
Yeah.
we want to do that? But it's not in the figure.
We're 10,000 off. In the gist of it, that's where we're at. To try to get to where we need to be for her, but we're 10,000 off.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you take away the stuff that belongs
Yeah.
to somebody else,
I've already did the math.
that's what you get.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. So the idea, assuming this is all the money we have right now, is that
Yeah.
that's the best way to use it. But I'm amenable to adjustments, and of course the budget itself is not specific to those uses. So if we want to shuffle some of that around later
Right.
on to take care of changing priorities or additional advice, I'm happy to do it. What else do I want to mention?
Kind of equipment. Thanks.
So we're ready for public safety.
Doug's equipment line, well, we talked a little bit about this already. That actually is a combination of budget money and the Homeland Security grant money, assuming we get it. So out of the 21K, you see there's 7 of it is, or I'm sorry, 14 of it is for that item. The rest is in line with what he's been spending for.
How do we look, so much been going on with the fleets, how do we look, Doug? And, I mean, do you see us needing to buy some down the road, or what, how do we look in terms of our
As far as
fleet?
equipment?
Yeah, in terms of your fleet, yes.
Well, I've obviously, I've sold a lot of the older cars and bought and got some good prices on the replacement models, but practically nothing, including the free one we just got. The idea is all that money comes back to you all. But at the same time, they're not new cars. I mean, I'm 2006, 2007, we got a 2004. But I was able to get a couple that had new engine and new transmission here and there. So the hope is they will last us as we rotate them, through them using, sparingly, that they'll all kind of last us through another year or so, maybe longer if we're lucky, because, Ed takes pretty good care of them. The equipment that the guys really want, the two things they complain about, one is their safety, and not all of them have a taser. Some of them are unreliable. Mike's actually doesn't work right now. He keeps it in his holster because maybe some will think it works. That's what really bothers them. If they came down to it and they needed it and it does not work, it's not reliable, and after a certain point, Taser International will not support it because they're basically beyond their service life. But we still use them because it's what we got. So, it's funny that I didn't even realize this till after I talked to them. Scott he was on the department. He was a service technician. He and Christopher was tasers. So I talked to him. He says, "Well, actually, we still represent them in a side business." I said, "Can you get us a better price than we might ordinarily get?" So he said, "Well, we'll look into it." So I haven't heard anything back. I mean, we just had this conversation. Might be able to get a discount. But to me, that's priority. It's priority for them and our safety. I don't know if y'all knew this. A week or two ago, we got a run on a guy. It was in Parkway Village with a knife, carrying a rock or a brick or something. Turned out it was a guy on meth who was upset with his ex-wife and his kids, and he was pounding the door trying to get in. And they got there, and LMPD showed up with Mike, and they got the guy down at gunpoint. He had a big, large knife, and Mike said, "I'm convinced if he kicked in the door, he's going to kill that lady." That's at this case, I guess when he's looking at 3 guns, he complied. But considering it was meth, and it was domestic, he might not have. So the choice is, do I shoot him or do I try to tase him first? Mike's taser wasn't going to work because it's broken. So it's always a better choice to try to use your lower, less than lethal weapons if you can save your life than the lethal ones. Certainly would have, a shooting would have made headlines. Taser nobody would have ever heard about. So that's, long story short, that's what I want. That's a priority for me, is getting them a good taser program. There's a grant that's available, and it's actually based on the sale of confiscated firearms. So if we had a good year confiscating firearms across Kentucky or the United States, then there's more money available. But that is a matching grant. They actually put an emphasis on bullet-resistant vests. Most of us have bullet-resistant vests from our previous employers that we've just left. And then the thing about that is, and I've tried to tell Mike to tell the grant lady, us getting a vest for someone when they're fitted for the individual who may leave in 6 months or a year, then we have a vest we really could let somebody else use, but they're designed to be fit for the individual that buys them. I said, we need tasers. We may have 2 vests we could give the officers need, but we really need tasers. So their priority is the vest, tasers second. We're going to see if we can shift those priorities. That said, if that doesn't work, then there's enough money there and just from us that I can at least replace the ones that aren't working now or are less reliable. Another thing I did was the money I got from the NDF grant, I'm buying repurposed computers and putting solid state circuitry in, and we're kind of putting them together. I thought if we had the money set aside where I could use, instead of getting 4 with those, use the NDF fund for 2, and then use our funds to get addition to, we'll upgrade the models, we'll have a longer life, better warranty. And depending on what happens, the fallback to that was, if the grant did come through the tasers, depending on how soon we know, then I could actually go back to buying the 4 with the NDF fund that are a lesser quality, and use some of the money I provisioned for, anticipating for the in-car computers to go towards the tasers also. It might give us a little more, maybe buy 1 or 2 more of those, a couple more of those, probably 2 or 3. So all in all, it's going to fall to one of those 2 items, tasers and or upgraded computer turbos. And what's happening in the state, while Dorn and I were having a discussion of it, Ed brought in another broken down MDT, our mobile data terminals. The state's going to a new program for how we file our crime reports, our action reports, and the other things we do with them. And we have to go to this new software, and the stuff we have now is not going to support it. So that was going to be included in the new computers also, the ability to support the portals and the programs the state requires. So, and that's going to be mandatory. should be actually by the end of the year.
Let me point out one more factor that Doug hasn't mentioned, and that is, as you look down his budget, you'll see that he's been even a bigger budget hawk than me, by cutting corners and looking to this past year's experience for where savings were realized, mostly by his initiative, and where without loss of efficiency, he can shave some of the budgetary demands. He's done a really superior job of doing that, and consequently his budget is a chunk less than it was, even when you discount the expiration of the highway safety grant and the court pay. He's still spending less money than he was before in the previous.
I took time to come over a few weeks ago and kind of played devil's advocate with, just talking to the chief, and I came away feeling like we probably have the most efficient, quality police force that a city could have. I think we're getting more bang for the buck than anybody else around.
I want to say too, while everybody else is here, and that gives me a little bit of cover, the reason his salary line doesn't quite match the one that he gave me is because I threw a couple more K at him, and that he doesn't know that.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Very good.
But I think he's earned it. This is the equivalent of about
If it becomes
$100.
tight, I defer to my officer's needs of.
And he does. That's why I didn't tell him about this.
Thank you.
And it's still less than last year.
The total is still less because he's cut some.
Yeah, not
corners. He
cheap.
really has.
I know, it's good.
I made him promise that the reason for that salary total going down was not because he's been covering a lot of the shifts himself, and he's on salary.
Why did fuel go down, just more efficient vehicles?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Prices.
The fuel, there you go.
Yeah. Well,
The cost of gas.
He's done his homework, I'm telling you.
Yeah, a couple of different things is projecting, going on the different websites, projecting futures for oil per gallon. And of course, Conway's on our side. I was going to sue Marathon. Running for governor.
There you go.
Bring those oil prices down.
No connection between the two.
But I'm projecting that based on our past usage and allowing for an increase in oil, but hopefully a realistic one based on projections. I think will be to bring it down and keep it at the level I project.
And that's what I was asking on the flip side, Dorn, is I actually think it'll go up. I think 20 is a little low. I think the price of oil is going to go up. It already has if you look at what it's done in the last month.
Any of the bills embedded here could go up.
Yeah, no doubt. But that explains. I didn't know if you had more efficient vehicles now, a combination
Well,
of cheap
actually,
gas.
the cars we've gotten do use less gas. The two Impalas use less fuel. Explorer doesn't use much. The Chargers used a lot more gas than these other vehicles did.
No, and of course, we held it at 27 this year,
Yeah.
and he's still only going to spend
Yeah.
about 24 or 5, I think.
Yeah. No, and I will admit to the part when I came up with that figure originally, I didn't realize I hadn't taken out Jason's share. So that accounted for some of the loss too, but they've got 3,000 of the difference. But these cars run better, and we were helped by the gas prices, and a number of different things came into the factory of it. But hopefully the gas prices won't go too much over $3 a gallon. If our wannabe our potential governor is able to do things before he's governor and win any lawsuits that keeps the gas prices down 20-30 cents, maybe that can't hurt either.
We've been at this a good while. Let me mention just briefly the last page here that covers the other two funds. The road fund is essentially a continuation of the line that I mentioned a little while ago, where the amount that we expect to have left is added to what we expect to take in if they don't drop the reimbursements from Frankfurt, and the balance should be available to be appropriated for whatever needs we have in road repair, and I'm holding to that. I didn't even use the road fund for the striping, the stop bars we just put in. I just took that out of general fund because I think we need this money to do paving. So that's what it's there. Same thing with waste management fund, that's funds in, funds out. The allocation is the same as last year for the contract payout and for the sewer damage set aside, which we haven't had to use this year. So that's going to be, there'll be a carryover for that. I'm not sure quite how to account for that properly yet, but I think Brenda's going to show me. So we'll go all in. But that's money we'll have. I think that's all I wanted to say, and again, ask you if you're content with publishing this thing as a working document for the rest of the audience to have a look at as we're messing with it. I have to make sure that it's well understood that this is a draft and that there's still changes in prospect and so forth, but at least give everybody else a chance to see what we're thinking about and what some of the background assumptions and expectations are. Any comments on that possibility, thoughts, ideas?
I have one last comment. And maybe I'm just not, maybe I imagine this, but I thought one year we went almost line by line on this whole thing, and my only suggestion is, I don't know if it's worth having. I hate putting in one more meeting, but this is really the most important thing that I do and we do as a council, obviously, and I don't know if it's worth going in one more meeting before the second reading to go line by line and just further digest this a little bit, because that's just my thoughts right now. I thought we did this once before. I thought everybody liked it. I thought we had it in Excel. We had it on the screen, and I thought that was very transparent and very good, and it gave everybody a chance to, you know, kind of look at everything and digest it a little bit more, because honestly, I know this is just the first reading, but I haven't had, much time getting this at 9:30 at Friday night and electronically Saturday to really digest this, and I think it's worth having. For what it's worth, I just wanted to say I think it's worth either having one more meeting and doing like we did last time before we second it, is what I wanted to get out there and say.
I don't object to doing that if you want to. I was reluctant to set up another special meeting because we've got a number of those already. And of course, this budget, with the exception of the specific lines we've talked about tonight, is much more of a sustaining proposition than the last couple that were really upheavals that needed to be done line by line. I don't object to doing line by line. We can either do that in a special meeting, or we can do it in the next regular meeting before we adopt the thing.
One thing that we might make note of is council's various vacation schedules. Because I probably have more availability before that next meeting. I know that if we were to need a meeting after that next meeting, I only, the next week I definitely wouldn't be able to be here. The last Monday in June I probably would. But if we're going to do special meetings, we need to take into account everybody's schedule.
Well, no, one other way to tackle this thing is the next regular meeting is the 15th of June. That still gives us 2 weeks.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I'm already down for the count for one of those.
Yeah,
And this is my first time doing this, is what I'm asking.
But we can make that a contingency if you want to. If you get to the next regular meeting and you've still got serious issues that we need to go through, we can schedule a special meeting and still get it done in time for the.
Do you want to have it before the next meeting? Is that what you're saying, Tom?
I thought that's what we did in the past, or that one year I remember doing that's what we did. But I just think, again, this is the most important thing we do.
The year
It
you're talking about, I think actually they were late doing the budget. Which you
Well,
can't be.
That's correct, and while I agree, everything is
They
a
did.
lot better than how things used to be. There's no doubt about that. I still think you have to give it the time it deserves, and I don't feel very good right. I mean, yes, I feel everybody's done such a great job, and hats off to what's been done up to this point, but I still think it's important enough to sit there and just, I won't make it a 12-hour ordeal. We hit on a lot of this stuff generically tonight, but I think it's worth at least having that session where we need to kind of go line by line real quick and be transparent and have some more discussion.
I wouldn't object, and I would prefer to have that meeting sometime between now and the next regular meeting. And that still leaves us, if we had a matter that couldn't be settled at the regular June meeting, we've still got one Monday in June that we could come back if we had to.
I promise not to have any more special meet, I mean, unless
No,
we really
don't
need to have
promise,
it,
we may-
Well,
but
another.
does everybody else, want to feel, go ahead, Laura.
Well, I mean, I think that would be wise, and the other thing I want to be kind of considered is if Joanne wasn't here tonight to see this. I mean, if the next meeting, we haven't discussed this as first opportunity she has to look at.
Probably could.
I mean, I think, I'm not sure when, likewise, I'm not sure she will be able to attend a meeting between now and June 15th either, but I think that would be, I think a potential risk that if we try to do it all in the next meeting, it might, go longer.
I'm not worried about hearing from Julian, I'm sure I will.
Well, no, but I'm not in the sense of a discussion
But, no,
amongst the council.
I take it. Well, you want me to poll the group for a date, or shall we try to choose one right now?
Is Monday typically the best day for this, since we meet on Mondays? We have Memorial Day
It's a
next.
familiar date.
We have Memorial Day next Monday, so that leaves us June 1st
I will be out of town on the first.
and June 8th.
June 8th is my choice.
That's a week before our next regular meeting.
June 8th.
If you say June 8th,
June 8th would be good.
it's good.
Is there any objections to the date? Very well. I'll schedule a special meeting for the 8th of June, same time? 7? For the sole purpose of line-by-line review of the budget proposal.
Tony, are you planning on just the council being there for this, or is it open, or how did you want
It
to do it?
depends, I think it would have to be open. Yeah, it's open,
We
absolutely.
don't have any
That's the
provisions
whole-
for closing the meeting at this time.
Okay.
Do you think we would have more information, Jeanette, on the PDA by then, as well, by June 8th?
Well, you're gonna know
Yeah, because
your your cutoff for your discount will be then,
I
and
think-
you'll have it by then.
yeah, what you're
But as
saying,
far as your appeals, then you won't have it.
But we'll
by-
have at least the discount.
Sure.
yeah.
That'd be good.
So you can give us a total of how much has been discounted to that point?
Yeah, I think I could. Just as long as y'all don't want minutes, Because it's not, none of this stuff is just like an hour's worth of work. It just isn't, it's a lot of work. Yeah, I can, because I have spreadsheets on all of it.
We'll get through this.
And as they pay me, I have dates, check numbers, I have everything. It's all on the spreadsheets about it.
I need that number more than
You got it then, you're kidding.
Well, then I don't want to let these minutes get too far behind because people forget what happened in the meeting, but we'll work on this. All right, well, despite having scheduled this special meeting, I hate to depend on that for statutory action, so I'm going to ask Jeanette to do a quick reading of the draft ordinance that would implement this budget. Again, this is just to pass through that rate with the understanding that changes are still in prospect and in play. But at least we'll have something on the table that we can review, and that's the purpose of the first reading. So, Jen, I think she has a highlighted copy of this one as well, just to touch on the high points.
City of Audubon Park, Kentucky, ordinance number to be determined, series 2015, an ordinance adopting the city budget for the fiscal year 2016. Now therefore be ordained by the City of Audubon Park that the city budget for the fiscal year 2016 shall be as follows. General funds, total revenue, $732,187. Appropriations, public administration, $205,121.71. Public Works, $124,305.67. Public safety, $402,681.49. Total appropriations, $732,108.87. Road funds, total revenue, $66,000. Appropriations, street paving, $66,000. Waste management fund, total revenue, $189,981. Appropriations, waste collection contract, $177,641.64. Storm damage reserve, $12,339.36.
Thank you. That is our first reading, and this will be available for motion and formal discussion at our next meeting.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we going to be able to talk to Mr. Wilks about the insurance this meeting? Because I know we have updates, and I know everyone else would want to hear about it. Because it's very, yes, it's very, I mean, I was very interested to hear, and I know that the rest of the council would want to. So I feel like it's unfair for you to know things that you guys don't, you know, so.
Is it,
Well, you may know something I don't. It was my impression that might be a little early to start making specific observations at this point, but, and I don't want to put Mr. Wills on the spot, but,
I know him pretty well. I don't feel that bad about it.
watch your mic.
But I really feel like the council deserves to hear the different steps of it rather than just, you know, the end product when it comes out. I mean, I just don't feel like I feel like if we don't talk to them about it, that it's not sharing what we should. I mean, I feel like we're here for a reason, you know?
That's a fair assessment.
No, I mean, the lawsuit's not between you, Dorn, and the airport authority. You know, it's all of us, and we should all know what's going on.
Well, I'm not here to talk about specific lawsuits right now because my lawyer isn't here. But if you want to have any discussions about general insurance matters, we can do that.
Okay.
Did you have something else?
Nope. I mean, the agenda says that we could have had a closed session, but you dismissed the attorney very early on, so now we can't talk about it.
do you have to have an attorney to have a closed session?
No. I just like having legal advice if we're going to talk about legal business.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm sorry we didn't have this discussion when we were on that agenda, item, but that's been our habit is to let the attorney go when we're finished with this work.
Well,
It's just to save a few bucks.
you and I had conversations before this meeting that you would meet with him before this meeting, and then he would talk to everybody so everyone would know what was going on. But because you dismissed the attorney so quickly, I almost feel like it's intentional to leave everyone in the dark.
Well, that's inaccurate.
I mean, I hope so.
I mean, my conclusion from having heard some preliminary discussion before the meeting was that there was nothing specific to say.
Okay, well, that's not what we talked about beforehand, so I was
Well, I
confused.
will leave that to you to work out.
Well, maybe sometime you guys will hear something.
I don't want to get in between you and Mr. Huntsman. But certainly I have every intention of keeping the council in the loop on all of this activity as it goes forward. That's fully with me.
Well, sorry, it was interesting to me.
I am not going to add much under the mayor's report because we've already talked about the tax bills and the materials having gone out. And there'll be continued mail outs of the budget ordinance and other things attendant at about the same time. And there's also a newsletter coming out next month. So as you think about additional publicity that we can give on paper to things like this MailChimp initiative. You know, we can take advantage of all of those flows to add things in, because I'm sort of falling into the habit, as you all know, of mailing out 3 or 4 things at the same time when we can, just to save on stamps. There's no reason not to do that. So we do have a newsletter upcoming next month. Be thinking about if you have something that you want to write about. There's no bar to council members composing things to insert into the newsletter. And I'd like to make this a good issue coming up in June. So with that, let me ask if there are any further public comments before we call it an evening. Laura?
I personally would rather see our police with taser than lights on our entrance. Just throwing it out there.
I can't hear what you're saying.
They need to have tasers versus lights on the entrance. I would not think that Audubon would want to put their cops in any type of danger or a situation that they would have to make a moral decision and then have to live with that for lights on an entrance into the neighborhood. To me, unacceptable.
I don't think anybody's posed that as a trade-off, but if they have, we'll deal with it.
Did I understand that your equipment budget here includes the tasers? Or not?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And it actually includes the potential grant money, I believe, too. So, for the matching part. So that would be adjusted down where we, as I said, we would end up with fewer, but every one of them at least have one.
So if we don't take away from that and buy lights, we could work.
Yes, I think so.
Or if we don't get the grant, any money for it, I suggest taking it from the lights.
I see.
Getting this.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
The next meeting will be Monday, the 8th, for the specific purpose of reviewing the budget in additional detail, and then we'll have a regular meeting on the 15th. Is there any other business from the table?
One question, I mean, would it be, I think that the special meeting that chief has to be here, but Tony was suggesting, should we also have Jason here?
I think it'd be a good meeting to have Jason and the chief, unless you disagree. Unless you don't think it warrants it, if you don't think, but it's just a thought.
Let me look into that. He normally works like from 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. So I'm reluctant to keep him here in the evening. But,
We can make him first, but, on the agenda, we can start public works and let him go, but just a thought.
Check on it.
It's just good to hear everybody's needs, just like it was with Chief tonight. It's just good to hear from them and let everybody know what the needs are, That way we can be educated when what we need to do.
And then I think just as good of hearing the forest board's budget.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Anything else? Any other motions?
I make a motion that this meeting be adjourned.
I'm sort of looking for that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded?
All those in favor?
uh,
We are adjourned.